in MLS regarding going to the ground easily.
It's your fault, Ali.
Apparently. The example you're saying for the children is a bad one.
Well, there's a lot of things that perhaps kids, when they watch me play, should not be copied. Look, diving, drawing fouls, whichever you want to call it, embellishment, those are things that are part of the game. And I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. It's not the best part of the game, but these things happen. And these things are going to continue to be part of it. And while there is frustration that kids are going to copy these things, I don't believe that at the core of this argument, Sean Dyche is just taking the moral high ground of saying, the kids, let's do it for the kids.
Right.
He is upset about the outcome of the game. He's upset about the moment. He's upset about the back and forth that he had with Jurgen Klopp about a similar subject. And so therefore, again, he's just standing there and speaking his mind, and so be it. I understand his frustration. But to talk about diving as if something that this is affecting our children and the way they play the game, come on now.
It's changed, though. It's
affecting Burnley, and that's his problem.
Yeah.
He's you know, European football last year, huge struggle this year. Can't pick up many, if any, wins. Struggling down the bottom of the league. Watching decisions go against his side, which is what happens generally when you're down there. You just think everything is going against you. And then he gets frustrated during the game. Now, there is a time where you could call it drawing a foul, and then there's a time like you saw with Guendouzi when he's just thrown himself to the ground. That's different, and I can understand his frustration there. But it's not just Arsenal; they're all at it.
Yeah.
What you have here is you've got a team that's struggling, and you've got a manager who was old school, was a lower league, big, hard, tough, grisly defender who wanted to have a scrap on the field and wouldn't take a backward step. And when he sees this now, he gets more frustrated, I think, than most, particularly when his team are not having a good season.
Julian, how much of a problem is diving in the Premier League?
I think it happens like in every single league. I mean, I think James Maddison was the most recent one where he got booked, and rightly so. And it was quite an obvious dive in the box as well. And I think people moved on. And I think, I understand Sean Dyche's frustration, like Craig just said. I think he should move on. It will happen. Some of his players might do that one day because, like Ali said, sometimes you're looking for the foul and you get it, and that's the right thing to do at that time if you feel like it. And I think Xhaka was not diving. Xhaka was touched on the shoulder. His team was 2-1 up at that time. He thought, you know what, I'm going to get a foul if I go down, and he got the foul. And I think a lot of players would have done that. And I just don't understand. I think Sean Dyche is picking the wrong battle there, and I think it's a shame.
Gab?
Look, I'd focus on the beginning of what he said. The guy is angry because he started by saying there was 61 games without Burnley getting a penalty, and he was upset because Kevin Long was pushed in the back and didn't get a penalty. He also said that it was a very natural way of falling, and you can go and check out the video of that. I'd say it was anything but whatever. This is what annoys him. This and the fact that after spending an enormous amount of money in the summer, they're down near the bottom of the table. But because he doesn't want to be seen only whinging about the penalties that aren't going to his team and the bad refereeing he's getting, he says, "Oh, let me broaden this out and turn it into a more broader lesson, an ethical lesson about his kid and diving and bad examples and Ale Moreno's a devil and stuff like that." This is all he's doing. I don't think that there's much more to it. That there's much more than that, to be perfectly honest. And he's speaking out now because of the situation that he's in. They were diving last year too, but then Burnley were 7th in the table. What, it didn't bother him then?
You mentioned the Guendouzi, you both agreed it was a dive.
Yeah.
So should he be retrospectively punished? Would you ban him for a game for that?
I think it was more falling over, if anything else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they don't want to retrospectively look at it. It's more difficult now for referees than it has ever been. There's not a doubt about that.
Sure.
The players are quicker,
But
the players are stronger, the game's faster, and players are looking for every opportunity to get an edge because of the financial implications for your team and your career.
If only there was a system that could help us all out and made just...
Some sort of video assistant.
Something that could come in and really provide a help for referees.
Quickly, Gab.
No, I just want to say, referees are aware of this, and just as we sit around and watch video, so do they. So they'll all sit around in their little refereeing kits. They'll watch Guendouzi after the fact, and they're going to sit among themselves and say, hey, did he dive? Yes. All right, let me make a mental note of that. I'll look out for it next time it happens. And people who are divers and who dive all the time, it eventually catches up with them.
Meanwhile, I spent my Christmas perusing, I'm sure like everyone, the ESPN FC website.
Oh.
And I was intrigued to find Craig Burley there, breaking down his Player of the Year so far.
I was made to do it.
Well, you did it.
They dragged me in. They gave me 10 names. I had no choice in the matter.
So you've got Alisson at 2. Well, you've got 3 Liverpool players in your top 5. Eden Hazard is 5, Raheem Sterling 3, Salah at 4. You've got Alisson at 2, and then Virgil van Dijk as number 1.
Yes, because I think, all the players on that list have had very good seasons. The list was actually picked by others, but I was happy with it. And
No, but you picked the list.
no, I didn't pick the 10 players.
No, but you picked the top 5.
I picked the top 5 out of 10 that I was given.
Right.
All right.
There are others that you
It's Christmas.
There
It's
are others
Christmas.
that you wanted, all right.
However, I went for the 2 Liverpool players at number 1 and 2 because I think apart from the mistake, I think 2 mistakes this season, one at Leicester and one against was it Man United recently. Alisson has been a bedrock for Liverpool in goals, and I think in front of him, that defence has been marshalled so well by Virgil van Dijk to a 4-point.
Are you surprised how good he's been, Van Dijk?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I'm surprised how good he's been. I'm not surprised he's been a success, but I'm surprised how much of a success he's been. To make the step up from Southampton, from going to Celtic for a couple of million, then moving to England with all the doubts. You can only do it in Scotland, you can only do this, you can only do that. And then been good at Southampton, and then so far been great for Liverpool and for Holland. It's the way he's marshalled the defence, and it's been his composure as well. I think he's been brilliant.
Is he your number 1?
Right now he is. I don't think he'll be number 1 at the end.
Why?
Because I think this championship and this league is going to be won in the second half of the season. In order for Liverpool, not only are they going to have to defend well, in order for Liverpool to win it, they'll have to defend well. But I think what we have seen from Mohamed Salah and the trend in which he is right now, he may just end up being the leading goal scorer in the league.
Right.
Usually, if you have a team that wins and you have a player that has the goals or the most goals scored in that league, the attacking player is going to get the benefit of the doubt. Unless we go voting as the Ballon d'Or was voted upon, which is, well, we're not giving it to an attacking player. We're going to look for something else. If you're looking for something else, Virgil van Dijk certainly is deserving of it.
Jules, who's your number 1 player in the season so far?
I went for Van Dijk as well. I just think he makes players around him better. He made Robertson better. He made Joe Gomez better. Trent Alexander-Arnold as well, and even Alisson. And if you look at the numbers and the club before Van Dijk arrived, which I think they conceded 1.21 goals a game, and since Van Dijk arrived, which is 0.5 goals a game in the 32 games he's played in the club, it's just outstanding. And you see the influence and the impact he's had on that team, which I think is magnificent. And special players have that sort of impact on the new team.
Now, what do we think Gab's going to say, boys?
Well,
Ancelotti.
Pochettino.
Gab, your number 1 player?
I was going to say David Brooks, but since you're all going to laugh at me, no. I'll go along with everybody else and say Van Dijk. Maybe for an additional reason here too. You remember Friday night? Everybody's going on about how brilliant Liverpool were against Wolves. Van Dijk showed up big in situations where actually I thought Liverpool really broke down defensively, whether it was Lovren or Milner on a position at right back. That situation where he chased down Traore, he shouldn't be doing that. He should never be Van Dijk against Traore in the open field unless something really bad has happened elsewhere, which is what happened to Liverpool. So for me, those defensive interventions, they're as good as goals at the other end.
Do you know what gets me as well is one of the other things is, and it's key here, is when he, not all the time, but most of the time when he comes off a field, he looks as if he's played 20 minutes.
Right.
And what that tells me as well is he's not running about crazily, like trying to chase his mistakes.
Not like you 20 minutes on the cross train.
No, not quite. And with no headphones in, bashing away like an idiot. Which is telling me that at the moment, not only is he mastering defence, but he's making good decisions. Yeah. So he's not getting himself in bad positions to have to force himself to get himself out of it. Maybe now and again it will, but not a lot. And I think if you look at Liverpool, centre-halves down the years, and particularly like Lawrenson and Hansen going back years ago, they were guys that thought about the defensive side of the game and rarely made mistakes. And that's why you see Van Dijk coming off at the end of a game hardly breaking sweat, because he's playing with his head as much as playing with his feet.
Think you'll vote for Ballon d'Or next year, probably.
Slap him, will you?
I don't know how you can work out without headphones. What's going on in
Well,
your
it's
life?
quite simple at the moment. I'm not.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
New year.
New
I'll
year.
be back.
New resolutions.
Best of the week, of course, is always available on the website as we look back at some of the best bits on the show in extra time, including Craig's dedication to the American Outlaws. No winter break in the Premier League, of course, all to play for going into a busy couple of days in England. Fixtures, shall we? Fulham Wolves starts it off. Burnley, Everton, Palace, Cardiff, Leicester, Manchester City, Liverpool, Newcastle United take on Huddersfield. It's Tottenham, Bournemouth, Brighton play host to Arsenal, Watford, Chelsea. Then on Thursday, Southampton, West Ham. Which game has got you most excited, Craig Burnham?
Not many. I would say historically, looking back, and I don't think it's going to be the case, but the Liverpool-Newcastle game has thrown up.
Oh, the old 4-3s. It's a bit different now, though.
It is a bit different now, but just to see if Liverpool can keep... Because they've got Arsenal and City after that.
Right.
So they need to keep the momentum going, which I think they will with the home win against the former manager in Rafa Benitez.
Craig, you can just feel how excited
Storylines. Storylines galore.
Yeah. Subplots galore.
Leicester, Manchester City.
Yep.
Now Manchester City has to go to Leicester, and after losing to Crystal Palace at home, then you expect, oh, well, here comes Manchester City. They're going to put together a performance. Or is it a performance that is filled with doubt and pressure and the fact that, wait a minute, are we losing touch here? Are we losing control? Are we not the team that we thought we would be? I expect Manchester City to have a great performance away from home.
Julien, what are you excited about? Not in life, but on Boxing Day.
I'm very excited about Tottenham Bournemouth at Wembley, because I think it would be a very open game, and we saw the performance that Spurs put out at Everton in the last match there, and I think they will score a lot of goals against Bournemouth, who will attack because that's what they do and that's the only thing they can do as well. And I love Dave Brooks, and I love Callum Wilson, and I love Eddie Howe, and I think it's going to be a great game.
What a lot of love. What about you, Gab? Watford, Chelsea?
Well, I'm excited by David Brooks at Wembley as well, but I'll say something different. So I'll go with Watford and Chelsea. I want to see how Chelsea bounce back, obviously, but also just how good are Watford. They're up to 7th in the table. That midfield, when everybody's fit, Doucouré and Capoue, I think is about as good as all but the top 2 or 3 midfields in the Premier League. They're solid at the back. I wonder, can they chase Manchester United into that 6th spot?
Watford with the best midfield in the league is what I heard. ESPN FC back on your screens tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow, though. Are you working tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm off. I'm off. Yes, I'm off.
Craig will be here alone.
Sorry, I was getting confused.
To look back at the Boxing Day games. Full programme of Serie A matches. Just a reminder how things stand going into those games on the 26th. Of course, the big one, Napoli against Inter. 8 points separate second and third going into this tie. Let's just take a look at all the games. There they are. It's the late one on Wednesday. Gab, pressure very much on Inter.
Yeah, pressure doubling down now because Inter made a huge call in deciding to basically suspend Raja Nainggolan. Of course, the record signing last summer. He's been suspended for disciplinary reasons. Nainggolan, you always took the good with the bad with him. We know he likes to party, he likes to drink, he likes to smoke, he likes to curse. But, you know, on the pitch, he was always a dervish. He gives you 100%. This time, though, this season, he's been injured quite a bit. He's missed games. He was late for training. Inter, not coincidentally, for the past couple weeks or so, they've had a new boss, Beppe Marotta, formerly the chief executive at Juventus. And he apparently said no more. Raja Nainggolan now basically suspended indefinitely from the team. There's suggestions they may try to sell him in January. Wow. Although, of course, that's not exactly the easiest way to go and sell somebody when he's the wrong side of 30. He's on a huge salary, and you've just suspended him for poor discipline.
This is Spalletti's boy as well, Gab, isn't it? He very much was instrumental in bringing him to Inter in the first place.
I see, Dan, that you're ready to read the tea leaves here. That's right. Spalletti all summer banged on about the fact that, Inter, they needed leaders, they needed warriors. He'd worked with him at Roma. He'd done a good job with him at Roma. To get him, because of Inter's rather parlous state with financial fair play, Inter had to give up Nicolo Zaniolo, who was pretty much their crown jewel, or one of their crown jewels in their youth academy. Zaniolo's now, he's moved to Rome. He's already been capped by Italy. He's a regular at Roma now, still 19 or 20 years old. And they had to part with him and something like 25 million, or even 30 million, in US dollars in cash. And for that, they got this guy, who now they've banned indefinitely.
Meanwhile, Gab, pressure on Gattuso. Suggestions in the Italian media. He's got 2 games to prove himself, or Arsene Wenger's coming in.
Yeah, this Wenger thing, my goodness. We need to ask Jules if this is something that people in France are obsessed with, because it's the same people in France reporting this over and over again. Gattuso may have a couple weeks to save his job. I would be extremely surprised if it was Arsene Wenger to come in, because he really doesn't fit the profile of what Milan's owners are trying to do. And more importantly, should he come over, he would meet the chief executive, who was his old boss at Arsenal, and the person who eventually showed him the door, Ivan Gazidis. And I think everybody knows it didn't exactly part on good terms. So this Wenger thing, to me, seems like some kind of weird French obsession.
Jules, why are you obsessed with Arsene Wenger and AC Milan?
No, we're not. I don't know where that's coming from. I agree with Gab. I don't think he will end up at AC Milan at all. So it's not a French obsession at all.
Well, they can go there, and then even Gazidis can peddle the same line out again about matching every club in the world in 2 years' time financially.
Yeah, how'd that work out? Let's talk about Mario Balotelli. He's had a terrible season. Patrick Vieira, of course, now in charge of Nice. Some interesting stuff from Vieira. Jules saying basically that he has to take a breath before dealing with Balotelli, because if he had played with him, he'd have pin him up against the dressing room wall.
Yeah, Patrick Vieira not happy at all. I mean, we had a feeling at the start of the season that after 2 very, very good seasons in Nice for Balotelli under Lucien Favre, 15 goals in the league the first season, 18 goals in the league last season in 28 games only. An amazing ratio. That the third season could be far more difficult and completely different. And we were right. And I think Patrick Vieira had that feeling as well. Balotelli didn't want to be there, but no one wanted to sign him in the summer, so he had to stay. And he came back from his holidays overweight, and from them it just went basically downwards, you said? Yeah, downwards.
Yeah,
downhill.
Nothing was working. Yeah, downhill. Thank you, Greg. Downhill. Nothing was working. He hasn't scored in the league in 10 games so far, just 1 assist. He had 1 very good game against Lille, but that's not enough. And Vieira is getting really frustrated by his lack of discipline, the lack of efficiency that he's showing on the pitch. And the attitude of I don't care, I don't want to listen to you. I mean, he walks halfway through one of Vieira's team meetings recently, a few weeks ago, which drove Vieira mad. And they can't work together. So the best way, I think, for both Vieira and Balotelli is that Balotelli goes in January. But who would want to sign him?
Monaco.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine.
Now, you want to keep going downhill, you go to Monaco.
Yeah, that's it.
They lost to the team that are bottom of the league.
Yeah, Thierry Henry's loving management.
Is having an absolute nightmare. But look, this is typical Balotelli, isn't it?
Yeah.
He comes, he gets a spark again, and you see that talent, and he gets a coach who he kind of understands, and he starts scoring goals, and then he just loses that impetus and momentum and focus, and it's back to the old Balotelli.
I can only imagine in a locker room, that must be the worst scenario, isn't it? Having that sort of player around.
Yes, specifically a guy like Balotelli who you recognize, because as a teammate you would recognize right away, man, this guy's got some talent.
Yeah.
This guy can do things that nobody else in this locker room can do, and if only we could use that out on the field, that would be helpful to all of us. So players and coaches and front office, everybody has been willing to live with whatever Balotelli is because he can give you that. But at some point, you got to give more weight to the fact that he's got within him a mix, a volatile mix that just add water and then it becomes a mess. And it's going to happen now. It happened 5 years ago. It happened 10 years ago. And it will happen again and again in his life because this is who he is. He's got a gene in him that just doesn't like things to work out well. He just wants things to, at some point, be chaotic. And in the chaos, he feels most comfortable. Why are you looking at Craig? No, why are you looking at Craig?
We can make some lovely chaos here. You want?
By the way, it's already been described as one of the best Serie Awesome podcasts ever. The next one, Gab, is off. So be sure to have a little listen. Paolo might get to string more than 2 sentences together without being interrupted. Him and Mina are taking it alone. Extra time available throughout the festive period over on the website where we answer your questions. Of course, it is the season for giving, so let's play Santa, shall we? Transfer wishes, 1 player, 1 club. Jules, you start.
Please, Santa, can you send N'Golo Kante to PSG? Whatever it takes, Santa, please make it happen.
Gab?
I'll go with my man Nicolas Pepe going from Lille to really anywhere in the Premier League. I'll say Chelsea so that Eden Hazard can permanently move up front.
Craig Burley.
Messi to Stoke City.